أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الخلائق أجمعين الحبيب المصطفى الهادي الأمين وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل
لا سيما سيدي ومولاي بقية الله الأعظم إمامنا وحجة رب العالمين على هذه الأرض أبو صالح المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Usually, in regard of our Imams, something comes to mind immediately when his name is mentioned. As an example, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi is the greatness of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam al-Hasan, the dhulm that was done to Imam Hasan salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi majma'in. Imam al-Hussein, Shaheed Karbala. And until it comes to Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, and immediately our minds goes to Baghdad and Kadhimain and to the prison of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. The same thing applies to the second youngest Imam, the son of Imam al-Hadi and the father of Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallah ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif, Imam Aba Muhammad Al-Hasan Al-Askari salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
It wasn't enough for the so-called Khulafa to bring Imam Al-Hadi and his family and his son to Samarra, but from time to time they would imprison them as well. They were confined in that military camp that they chose to be their capital, and from time to time they feel the need and the urge from shaitan to throw the Imam salamullahi alayhi in the prison. So Imam, he was 2 years old when he moved there, and he was martyred when he was 28. And he has the shortest span of the Imamah among all the Imams, 8 years. My apologies, 6 years. 6 years of Imamah. One of the thing that usually we call Askariyin, the same reason that some people call after Imam al-Rida all the Imams Ibn al-Rida. And the name Askari, of course, means military. But sometimes you see in the riwayat, the hadith, that the Shia among themselves, they refer to the Imam Sahib al-Askar. And that makes you think, okay, Sahib al-Askar means the one who has the Askar, who has the military. And maybe you say it's because of the city, because it was a military camp, it's referred to that. But there is a different reason for that as well. The reason was in the time of Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salam. Mutawakkil alayhi la'inullah, he wanted to show and to scare the Imam with his military. So they had, of course, their force and their strength was with the Turks. So he called upon the cavalry and 90,000 of them in an open area, and told each one of them to fill his horse bag with dirt and put it on top of each other. That made like a hill. And he went on top of that hill and called upon Imam Hasan Al-Hadi alayhi salam and told him that, you see my might and my forces, like they are all under my command. 90,000 people. It's equivalent to a whole military march, parade, 90,000. And he told them to be with their horses and equipped with their weapons and with a full military gear. Imam saw that and he told them that, and do you want to see my military? He says, yes. And Imam showed him, says, look. And he looked. He saw angels with spears and weapons filled from heaven to earth and from east to the west. He passed out and soiled himself. After he regained consciousness, he says, this is my military, you saw my military. But, saying that, we are preoccupied with the hereafter. Don't worry about us. So the name goes Sahibul Askar, a true military, a true might, that nowadays, it shows, it reveals itself that in the middle of a city that don't follow Ahlul Bayt, there is the biggest mosque, the biggest dome, representing the true light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With this, every time you go to Samarra, you feel the kind of the dhulm, the tyranny that was against Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salam alayhim ajma'in. When you go there, you feel still they are estranged in their own lands and on their own cities. With this, the hadith goes that أشد الناس بلاء أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء ثم الأوصياء ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. That the most severe bala and test is upon the prophets, then awsiya, then who are similar to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ankabut, أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم. The test, it will be done, you have to go through this test. Everyone, in every way. Sometimes a person would ask and would wonder, why a kafir doesn't go through that test? Why should we all suffer and they live comfortably? One day, Musa ala nabina wa alihi afdal salatu wa azka salam was walking beside the beach, and he saw a fisherman came with his net, threw the net in the sea. Before that, he bowed down and prayed to the sun. I actually went and researched that. They have a sun god. I don't want to name the sun god on this minbar, but they have a sun god. They even have prayers that's still preserved for the sun god. Of course, for some weird reason, some people think we have a moon god. I don't know why, but yeah, maybe because of the fact a lot of mosques, they put a crescent on top of their minaras or on top of their dome, and people think that, oh, they probably pray to that kind of thing and planet, moon actually. Anyway, so he did that prayer and threw the net in the sea and took the net out. It was filled with fish. Threw the net back again filled with fish. Speak about overfishing. He threw it third time, it was filled with the fish as well. Okay, it was his rizq. Along comes a mu'min. He prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he threw his net. Didn't catch a thing. Second time, this is not going to be like, it's called fishing. Fishing he needs to wait, right? Again, second time, Musa is looking, observing what's going to happen. Nothing. Third time, a small fish. Probably that guy, he took all the fish. Anyway, and he thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and left. Said, oh Lord, Musa. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I need to be very particular for what Musa alayhi salam said. Musa ala nabina wa alihi afdal salatu wa azka salam said, oh Lord, what's happened? This moment got nothing. And he praying to you, a true God, the only God. And this is idolater. And he got all this fish. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, oh Musa, look to your left. He looked to his left. He saw the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved for that kafir in hellfire. He said, look to your right. He looked to his right. He saw the place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved in the heaven for that moment. He said, all the fish that he got, all that thing that I gave him, will not benefit him in the place that I preserved for him in hellfire. And that fish, all that I prevented, withheld that moment to get, would not decrease his status in heaven. And then Musa praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, when we say Allah knows best, truly Allah knows best. They say in the hereafter, a moment comes and see, oh my Allah, there's a lot of thawab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for him. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And he says, oh Ya Rabb, what have I done to deserve all this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for all the tests that you went through in this life, you deserve this. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give good tidings, good news to the people who have patience. One day, Musa alayhi salam said, oh Allah, I want to see the dearest person to you. Of course, he's a prophet. And this is important as well. Musa was very humble. All the prophets, among them is Musa. All the prophets were humble. Again, see how Musa, who Kalimullah, who speaks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed as a prophet, he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the dearest to you? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, go to this village next to this sea, in a spot and a ruin, there's a person, he is the dearest to me in this world. He went and saw a person who is diseased, sick. He has this skin disease called baras and judam. So, this kind of disease makes you look ugly as well. Right? Makes you look ugly. And he was there praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He asked Jibreel, am I in the wrong location, in the right location? He said, no, you are where you're supposed to be. He is that person. So I thought I would see someone who is like standing and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fasting and like doing, we have this kind of image in our mind in regard of pious people, right? He says, no. And look what's going to happen to him now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Jibreel to take his eyes. There and then, his eyes was taken from him. He says, oh Lord, this person, he said, oh Lord, you made me enjoy my eyes to this day. And it was out of your wisdom to take it from me. Ya barru ya wasul. Musa was astonished. He said to him, O Shaykh, I'm a person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant me my wishes. If I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something, is a prophet. Right? The dua of the prophet is mustajab. He says that, he didn't say even that I'm a prophet. Some people that have that kind of personality that they want to always boast and say that who we are and what we have accomplished and what we are what we have done. So this person, Musa told him that ask for what you wish for. It says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's best for me, and I would love what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves this. Says, what is this dhikr that you mentioned? Ya barru ya wasul. What have God given you? You have nothing. He said, I have something that no one in this village has. So what is this? He said, I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sees that as a gift. And Musa left astonished. He said, that he is the most dearest person to you, O Lord. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. There's a hadith that says, 40 days will not pass on a mu'min but to be afflicted with something. 40 days. Right? Start the calendar. Mark the calendar. One maybe in his wealth or his health or someone that he dears, or this is the least sometimes maybe, is a grief and a sadness that he doesn't know the source of that sadness. That, and what the moment usually does when he's sad? Does he go to a bar? Wal-'iyadhu billah? Does he goes and listen to a happy music? No. He goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and review himself. What have I done? Why am I sad now? I will cheer myself up by mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. I will calm myself down with mentioning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil ما زلت أنا ومن كان قبلي من النبيين والمؤمنين مبتلين بمن يؤذينا. That me and the prophets before me and the believers always been afflicted by those who harm us. ولو كان المؤمن, if a mu'min, على رأس جبل, on a mountain top, لقيض الله عز وجل له من يؤذيه ليؤجره على ذلك. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would create and appoint someone to harm him, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him for it. And there's a riwayah that it's again kind of for us probably. It's from Imam Abu Abdullah As-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil. It says that mu'min sometimes has a neighbor that disturbs him. And he says here, and him that if a mu'min goes on an island in the middle of the sea, a person will come and harm him. Usually mu'min, they go about their days. They do their halal. They stay away from the haram of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Out of the blue, someone comes to him. Not that he went to that person. Someone comes to him. Why did you do this? Why are you doing this? Like for example, my diet is halal diet. Why do you eat halal? What's the difference between this meat and that meat? Why do you believe what you believe? Now, leave me alone. Leave me alone. No. You will not be left alone. Forget about this. Forget about it. Someone will come. If you're a mu'min, of course. Someone will come. Without shaitan sending him or him himself as a shaitan. That comes and starts agonizing you. That's how the mu'min is. But says the mu'min is tougher than the mountain. The mountain can be carved. A tunnel. The other day I saw this amazing kind of accomplishment of an Indian who carved a pathway in a mountain just by himself. Just by himself, because his wife passed away the reason of that, they couldn't get her in time to the hospital because of that mountain. So he said, I'm going to carve and split this mountain in half. And he did it. Says the mu'min cannot, his mu'min is tougher than this. The mountain can be carved. You can't take from the mountain. You can't even split the mountain in half. But the mu'min is tougher. And not just this. The mu'min changes things. Don't we say that? What's the meaning of imam? He does something, I do similar. Right? I follow. I'm a follower. When someone as young as Imam Hasan Al-Askari, in that military city, military camp, sometimes in a prison, there was someone, his name was Salih ibn Wasif. Talih ibn Wasif. Salih is a good, Talih is the opposite. I think it was the Mu'tamad. Imam, in his Imamah time, there was 3 Khalifas, so-called Khalifa. Mu'taz, Muhtadi, Mu'tamad. And he said to the so-called Khalifa, told him that, why don't you be more tough on Abu Muhammad ibn al-Rida? He said, what can I do to him? What more that I can do to him? He said, what have you done to him? He said, I put him in prison. I put him in prison. And I appointed 2 of one of the worst people that I know. After a couple of days, they got out, the most pious people, and they don't even dare to look at Imam Salawatullahi Wasalamu alayhi's eye, and they bow down always to him. And I went and asked him, what happened? Like, I appointed you to torture him, and you now following him? He said, what can we do with this such a person who's always does tasbih, always mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with him. What can we do with him? Like his father, Imam Al-Hadi, he was thrown in a lion's pit. There was a person by the name of Yahya ibn Qutaybah. Yahya ibn Qutaybah, he had this cell in his house, like a Sindhi ibn Shahik, and he threw the Imam there. His wife, like the wife of Sindhi ibn Shahik, said, what are you doing to this person? This is a man of God. You don't know who you're dealing with here. He said, sometimes, an argument between a husband and wife results in someone's not just disobeying, doing the exact opposite of what she wants. So he said that I will ask permission to throw him in a lion den, and I will do that. And he did. He threw the Imam Salamullah alayhi in the lion den, and he closed the door. Came back a few days later, coming back, going to opening the door and seeing that lions are circling the Imam Salawatullahi Wasalam alayhi, and Imam is praying in the middle. Imam Salawatullahi Wasalam alayhi start changing the people themselves, because all the thing that you hear, Samarra still to the day, is not a Shia city. It's not a city who follows Ahl Bayt Salawatullahi Wasalam alayhi majma'in. Imagine back in the day, it was the capital of so-called Khilafah. The Shia were prevented from even saying salam to the Imam. Imam will warn them a couple of times not to even say salam to me, because you will put your life in danger. And yet, you see the Imam even change the people there. As an example, I mentioned this a couple of maybe years ago, that one day they caught a thief. He was drilling a hole behind an sarraf called money exchange. Right? They had it back in the day as well. And they caught him. He says, don't harm me, I'm from the Shia of Hasan Al-Askari. The person in charge, the officer, he respected that. Why did he respect that? Why did he respect that he's a follower of Hasan Al-Askari? And give me a good reason. Other than they were not followers, but just this person, who of course wasn't a Shia of Imam Salamullah alayhi, was a muhib of Imam, right? He said, he mentioned the name of the Imam, stopped them. Why did it stop them? Because they saw so many times miracle. Mu'tamid alayhi la'anullah, the one who poisoned the Imam, came to Imam begging him and asking him, please do dua for me so Allah preserve my life. Those Turks are killing us one by one. And Imam Salamullah alayhi did dua for him. And he maybe was one of the most long served or long ruled so-called Khalifa for 20 years. 20 years. And it was uncommon. Mutawakkil was killed, Muhtadi was killed, Muntasir was killed. Like all of them were killed brutally by the Turks, who they hired. But the Imam Salawatullah, they knew the Imam. In 6 years, Imam Salawatullah, he made the people realize who he is. But you ask again, what's this animosity towards the Imam? He didn't have a military. He was confined in that city, right? He was not allowed to leave the city. I think one of the times that they allowed him to leave was with a military going from Samarra to Basra to crush the rebellions of the Sahib al-Zinj. There was someone who claimed he's a descendant of Ahl Bayt, which he wasn't, and he killed a lot of people. And Imam Salamullah alayhi said that he's not one of us, and he was a brutal person, a bad person anyway. So even with this, he took a stand, if you like worldly kind of things, if you look at it from that angle, he took a stand with the government. So why this animosity and to be this cruel to someone that didn't harm them? I tell you the reason. The reason is the hadith. You know, why Fir'aun start butchering the women? The women. Why does he start butchering the women? Because he heard that someone will come that will end his reign. Of course, they say it didn't end his reign, it ended the reign of his son. But nevertheless, they are afraid that his reign and his rule or his descendant rule will end with him. So they heard so many times about who? About Al-Mahdi. Ajjallah ta'ala farajahu sharif. They heard it so many times. There's a hadith in the other book, in the Sahih al-Bukhari. You know, I don't need to bring the chain of authenticity of the hadith when I say it's Bukhari, right? So in Bukhari, there's a hadith that states, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Yeah. يكون من بعدي 12 أميرا. After me, there will be 12 princes. فتكلم. So the one who is narrating, right? The one who is narrating is saying this. This hadith says that فتكلم فخفي عليه. He said something, but I couldn't hear him well. Why he couldn't hear him well, even though he heard that? I tell you the reason. If you, in the bottom of this hadith, there's a description, right? And it's a website that brings all the hadith that was authentic, which is not, and a lot of article against Shia, obviously, right? So at the bottom it says, like at the commentary, it says, and it brings another hadith that when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam mentioned this hadith, people start saying Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah. So making a what? Noise. Why? Because the Prophet was about to reveal the names. The same thing that they did, what? In Raziyatul Khamis. When that person said that Rasulullah, like he's in pain, Rasulullah telling them that bring me something that you will not go astray after that. And you know what? How they justify it? He said, but because Rasulullah was sick and he would be tired of writing, so that out of compassion, out of compassion, they said this. Disobeying Rasulullah salawatullahi wasalam alayhi direct order. Your leader, at least he's your leader. If you don't believe in his prophethood, at least he's your leader. So what they said is, he said that there's different narration. One is that he's that he's in pain, so he's unaware what he's saying. So let me continue with the hadith. فَتَكَلَّمَ فَخَفِيَ عَلَيْهِ. He said something that I couldn't hear well. Then he says, فَسَأَلْتُ الَّذِي يَلِينِي. Says someone was next to me. Said, what did he say? He said, all of them are from Quraysh. So how they interpret this, you think? Right? How they interpret this? They interpret it by saying that it's 12 after Rasulullah, except of Marwan ibn al-Hakam and Muawiyah ibn Yazid. Not Yazid ibn Muawiyah. No. Muawiyah ibn Yazid. And I mentioned about Muawiyah ibn Yazid. It was who relinquished his position. He was last person who ruled from Abu Sufyan. And he said that, my grandfather and my father fought with people to take something that wasn't theirs to begin with. And I will not do that. And I said that on his grave, it's written that this is the grave of Muawiyah ibn Yazid, the lover of Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salam alayhim ajma'in. And they said, except for those two, until Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, it's 12. So that's ended the whole thing. Not until the end, but the rest, they know what's going on. So Imam, they knew he is the 11th. And the 12th that's it. Game over for them. That's how they're afraid of. So when they knew that he is the 11th Imam, and he will be the father of the awaited one. The one that Imam responsibility was great. He was the father of someone that Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq says, if I be in his time, I will serve him. He's the father of someone who made Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam after Ashura for many years smile. He is the Imam that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi said, I yearn to see, and he was crying to see my son Al-Mahdi. He's the father of such a personality, the living Imam. That's why, because of his son, they put so much pressure on this young Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. That even his own sister Hakima, his aunt Hakima, she didn't know that his wife is pregnant and she is due. So Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi needed to protect the Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman Ajallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, needed to prepare the people for the occultation of Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He needed to prepare the world to receive Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Mu'tamid al-Abbasi alayhi la'ayn Allah, he finally saw to get rid of Imam Aba Muhammad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. So on the 1st of Rabi', he put poison in Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi's food. And we all know that Imam was surrounded by spies. He was surrounded by soldiers. He would need permission to go out of his house. Every Monday and Thursday, they would take him to the palace of so-called Khalifa. Imam Salamullah alayhi for 8 days. For 8 days was battling this poison in his body, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. On the 8th day, a day like this, Imam Salamullah alayhi said to his servant, Aqid, he told him, Aqid, boil me some water and put some, there's a plant called mastaki, they put it in it to ease the Imam salawatullah salamu alayhi's pain. Aqid, he brought the Imams the water, but at 28 years old, he was so fragile and so weak that he couldn't even drink that water. His teeth start hitting the bowl of water, and Imam Salamullah alayhi put it back and said, "O Aqid, go in that room. You will see a boy. Call upon him and tell him that his father wants him." Aqid said, "I never seen a boy in this house. Yet I went to the room and opened the door and saw a 5 years old doing sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know, maybe asking for the shifa of his father salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi." His mother came and took him to his father. Imam Aba Muhammad Salamullah alayhi said, "Ya Sayyid Ahl Baytah." Allahu Akbar. He was addressing Imam Sahib al-Asr al-Zaman, saying, the master of his household, "Ya Sayyid Ahl Baytah, asqini al-ma'." Give me some water. Imam salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he helped his father to drink some of that water. And he said that, "Point me to the Qibla. I want to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And help me to do my wudu." Imam put a cloth and pointed Imam to the Qibla, helped him to the Qibla, and start washing the Imam for his wudu, because Imam was so weak to even do wudu himself. Then the Imam Salamullah alayhi, he laid down towards the Qibla. He stretched his leg. He put his two hands on his side. He bid farewell to his son and the servant and his wife and the people who were there. his forehead starts sweating. Imam Salamullah alayhi, probably salawatullahi wa salam alayhi, started to wipe the sweat off the forehead of Imam Salamullah alayhi. Then the Imam said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And his soul left his body. Wa imama wa sayyida wa ghariba wa madluma. There's this picture you have in your mind that the son of the Imam Salamullahi alayhi came to Imam Salamullahi alayhi, but the Imam we never see in any dua, in any way, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman mentioning Aba Abdullah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Like this but in reverse. Like this but in reverse. When the son asked his father for a little water, when Ali al-Akbar came to Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura asking, Father, all this armor is heavy on me, I'm tired, is there any water? Imam Salamullahi alayhi told him, go back to the battle. In a little while your grandfather Rasulullah will give you a drink of water, will quench your thirst. You will never be thirsty ever again after that. Imam Salamullahi alayhi bid farewell again to his son Ali al-Akbar. All of a sudden he heard the cry out of Ali al-Akbar, Aba ya Hussein عليك مني السلام, هذا جدي رسول الله قد سقاني من كاسه الأوفى لن أظمأ بعدها أبدا. He cried out, said, oh Father, oh Hussein, this is your promise that it's been granted, that was revealed to me, that my grandfather Rasulullah gave me water, that I will never be thirsty ever again. Imam Hussein, hearing the crying out of his son, he went like an eagle to the battle. He went there, but he was late. Instead, the son, wiping off sweat of his father's face, Imam Hussein was wiping blood and sand of his son Ali al-Akbar. What did he say? He said, Ali, bunay Ali, ala dunya ba'dak al-afa. This life not worth living after you, my son Ali. Did he carry him? No, he couldn't carry him because they chopped him pieces to pieces. He was butchered. He says, Ya Bani Hashim, come and help me to carry my son Ali to the tent. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم عجل ثم قرب في فرج صاحب العصر والزمان. Allahumma ij'al farajana ma'a farajih. Be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at this hours of Maghrib, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with broken hearts for his father, Imam Aba Muhammad Al-Hasan Al-Askari Al-Mazlum. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our Master Sahib Al-Asr wal-Zaman. Ajal Allah ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on the souls of all mu'mineen and mu'minat. We lost many people from this community in the last month. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have his mercy upon them. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them in the highest heaven with Muhammad and Al Muhammad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend the life of all mu'mineen and mu'minat. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all mu'mineen and mu'minat their hawa'ij. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give a speedy recovery, inshallah, to all the one who are in need of our dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by this ayah al-mubarakah to grant them, inshallah, a speedy recovery. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Amman yujibul mudtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف